Okay, I had an epiphany in the midst of all this. I think it's a good one. Where to start? There's something I've been trying to describe for some time now, and I don't know how. Hyper lucidity for me was not working on Nobel Prize winning stuff. It was working on English arguments in my head and then trying to reverse the process. Um, I like blueberries because they make me happy, and I'm only happy when I'm eating blueberries. Um, so you try to reverse this. I'm only happy eating blueberries because they make me happy, and that's why I like eating blueberries. That's pretty simple, right? You get to complex language, and it becomes enormously difficult to reverse the process. And this guy came by, real or not, who talked about how he's a Latin major, and he says, "Well, take E plus unum or whatever it is." And I said, "Plus many, a many united, a many." He said, "Exactly, a nation united with a nation." And he said, "You can see how that would help with problem solving, can't you?" I said, "Absolutely, changing the representation of data." You sort of look at it this way, you see it, and then you need to change it to something else to see it another way to examine it. And he says, yeah. And the thing is when we learn, we change the representation of data. And AI, artificial intelligence, learns, it changes the representation of data. And it goes through, depending on the state of the data, it goes through loops. And each transformation of data, like if you have a bunch of points plotted on the Cartesian plane, and you flip them around the y equals x-axis, it's reversible. You can see for the English language, let's do a more complex sentence. I've never had a cosmonaut in here with me because I know this because cosmonauts are Russian and no one has ever spoken Russian in my condo. Uh, and that's why I've never had a cosmonaut in here with me. Okay, so I've never had no one has ever spoken Russian in my condo. But I don't have cosmonauts speak Russian. I have Russians. Cosmonauts are Russian. So Russian speakers are cosmonauts are exclusively Russian speakers, and you can see that just gets out of control very fast. 100-step sentence is just crazy, and so the human brain doesn't go in reverse. It doesn't conduct reversible transformations of data like computers do, and therefore you can't learn from going around the loop, or even a complex variant of going around the loop, because nothing's reversible. You can't go backwards, therefore you can't learn if you can't retrace. Hence, nothing can be learned to go be applied. You apply your loop to another problem, and you figure out how that loop can help solve this problem, and that's about all you can do. You can't actually learn to improve the process of going around this loop. You can't learn anything from it. It's even more complicated than that in artificial intelligence. I'm beginning to get into it. You drive. I'm not trying to understand it myself, but you drive functions in probable mixed distributions, and you draw variables in mixed distributions that are observed. You never know what the variables are. You determine the appropriate function based on 10,000 outputs or 10 million outputs that are arbitrarily generated to include this observed variable, all the observed variables from this mixed distribution. You determine which of these functions belong to these criteria, and then you determine what the criteria are. Not the distribution comes from, where the criteria are the variable. You go from there, but that was actually very quick. But that's why nothing can be learned, it can be applied, because the human brain, when it conducts transformations of data, they aren't reversible. I swear to fucking Christ, I'm right about that.